Welcome to an English lesson. Prepare yourselves, everyone, for this story is about to take you on a thrilling journey. Let us begin. It was deep into the night within the United States House of Representatives. The atmosphere was thick with drama and anticipation during this pivotal moment. Members of Congress had gathered to cast their votes on an enormous new piece of legislation. This legislation was popularly known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. At nearly 900 pages, it was incredibly long and proposed numerous significant changes. For the nation, the bill addressed subjects like taxes for workers and families, funding for the military and border security, and support for healthcare and food assistance programs. The vote itself was incredibly tense and narrowly decided, stretching over many hours and lasting into the early morning. A great deal of debate and political maneuvering preceded the vote. There were passionate supporters of the bill, just as there were staunch opponents. When the final tally was complete, the bill passed. But by an extremely slim margin, the final count was 218 members voting in favor of the bill and 214 members voting against it. This razor-thin difference meant the bill just managed to clear the House of Representatives. Securing the passage of this bill was a major triumph for President Trump. He had dedicated himself to gathering the required votes throughout the long night. The vote concluded very late on the night of July 3rd, immediately before the major American holiday of July 4th, passing such a significant bill right before Independence Day was widely regarded as a notable accomplishment for the president. This new law is now set to introduce profound changes across the United States. 2. What is in the bill? This massive new legislation, the One Big Beautiful Bill, is extensive, running almost 900 pages long. It alters many aspects of life in the country. Firstly, the bill modifies taxes for individuals and families. It makes certain tax cuts, which were scheduled to expire, permanent. This results in people paying a lower rate of tax on their income. The law also preserves the child tax credit, which provides financial aid to families with children. Furthermore, the law introduces new forms of tax relief. For instance, declares that individuals do not have to pay federal tax on income earned from tips or from overtime pay for extra hours worked. For senior citizens, it increases the standard deduction, which is the amount of income exempt from taxes. Upon the birth of a baby, the family is eligible for a special $1,000 tax-free account. Additionally, if you purchase a car manufactured in America, the loan for that car is exempt from federal taxes. The bill also allocates substantial funds to specific sectors. It directs approximately $170 billion toward border security. This funding will support the construction of more sections of the border wall and finance additional facilities to detain individuals who cross the border. The bill also provides a significant funding boost of about $160 billion to the military. This money is designated for assets like naval ships and aircraft. It will also finance a new missile defense system, referred to as the Golden Dome. However, the bill simultaneously reduces funding for other critical programs. It removes a considerable sum of money from healthcare programs for low-income individuals, such as Medicaid. Analysts predict this could lead to many millions of Americans losing their healthcare assistance. The bill also slashes funding for programs that help families purchase food, like SNAP. This action could make it more challenging for numerous families to access the nutrition they require. Finally, it eliminates funding for clean energy initiatives, such as those supporting electric vehicles or solar and wind power. 3. The vote in the House passing. The enormous bill through the House of Representatives was an arduous task. It was a period marked by difficulty and high drama. As the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, labored intensely to secure enough votes from the members of his own political party. Many members within the party held diverse opinions and were uncertain about whether to support the bill. Unifying everyone proved to be a significant challenge. The night of the vote was protracted and filled with suspense. The period for members to cast their ballots was held open for more than 5 hours. This is highly unusual and illustrated the immense difficulty leaders faced in gathering the necessary support. Numerous discussions and private meetings were taking place behind the scenes. Party leaders were actively working to convince members to vote yes. The nation's president was a central figure during this time. he put in a great deal of effort to secure the needed votes. Making a series of late-night phone calls, he was contacting members of his party who were either undecided or leaning toward voting no, even placing calls after 1 o'clock in the morning. Those close to the president described him as highly effective at persuading people and helping them decide to back the bill. Some members of the president's party had powerful objections to specific elements of the legislation. For example, a bloc of 16 members had publicly declared their opposition to the bill because it would cut healthcare assistance for many people, even co-authoring a letter to formalize their stance. Yet following crucial conversations and debates, particularly with the president and other influential leaders, this entire group reversed their position. Their choice to vote yes represented a huge victory for the bill's proponents and demonstrated the president's considerable influence within his party. As a result of all this effort, these late-night negotiations, and the changes of heart, the leadership finally secured enough votes. The vote was held very late in the early hours of the morning. The final tally in the House was exceedingly close. 218 individuals voted in favor of the bill. 214 voted against it. Only a handful of votes made the difference, allowing the bill to pass the House and proceed to the next stage. Point 4. Money in the bill. This new legislation comes with a substantial price tag and will have a major impact on the nation's finances. Financial experts predict that the national debt, the total amount of money the country owes, will increase significantly. Analysis suggests it may rise by approximately $3.3 trillion over the coming decade. This increase occurs because the bill fundamentally alters how the government collects and spends money. It reduces taxes for a wide range of individuals and corporations, meaning the government will take in less revenue. The bill also enacts spending cuts to some government programs, which saves the government some funds. However, the amount of money the government forgoes in tax revenue is far greater than the savings from program cuts. Consequently, the government's overall financial resources will be reduced relative to its spending commitments. These fiscal changes impact various segments of the population differently. Studies indicate that high-income individuals and corporations are likely to benefit most from the tax reductions. They will experience larger savings on their tax bills. For those with lower incomes, the tax relief is often considerably smaller. Simultaneously, the cuts to government programs mean that certain individuals might lose access to support. These programs frequently offer assistance for necessities like healthcare, family food budgets, or aid for those facing hardship. People who depend on these programs may face greater difficulty in obtaining the help they need due to the bill's spending reductions. Therefore, some groups gain more from the tax cuts, while others are more heavily impacted by the cuts to essential services. Economists hold widely divergent views on the bill's long-term effects on the country. Some economists predict that the tax cuts will stimulate faster economic growth. They contend that lower taxes will incentivize businesses to invest capital and hire more workers. They argue this economic expansion will ultimately benefit everyone. Despite the increased debt, their focus is on the principle that providing businesses with more capital will foster greater economic activity and national wealth. In contrast, other economists express serious concern. They argue that expanding the national debt by about $3.3 trillion over 10 years poses a significant risk. They claim such a massive debt could inhibit economic growth in the future. They also highlight that studies show the largest financial gains from the tax cuts accrue to individuals and corporations that are already wealthy. They worry that the cuts to government programs will disproportionately harm the nation's most vulnerable populations. These economists believe the bill could exacerbate inequality, enriching the wealthy while making life more difficult for those who require assistance. The ultimate long-term financial consequences of this law remain uncertain, with economists in strong disagreement about whether it will ultimately strengthen or weaken the economy and its people. 5. Changes to health and food. The new bill implements significant changes to healthcare and food assistance programs throughout the nation. These modifications will have a substantial impact on many individuals who rely on government support. Key provision of the bill involves major alterations to the health program known as Medicaid, which offers health insurance to millions of low-income Americans. The legislation slashes a vast amount of funding from Medicaid. Over the next decade, the program is projected to lose approximately $930 billion in funding. Experts predict that due to these substantial cuts, a large number of people could lose their health insurance. An estimated 17 million Americans might no longer have access to health care via Medicaid. This means a potential 17 million people could be without assistance for paying for doctor visits, hospital stays, or necessary medications. The bill also establishes new regulations for Medicaid beneficiaries. For many adults deemed capable of working, there will now be requirements to work a minimum number of hours or engage in job training to maintain their benefits. Certain groups are exempt from these work rules, including those caring for young children or individuals with disabilities. The new law also mandates that states conduct more frequent checks to verify if people remain eligible for Medicaid. Additionally, states must improve their methods for verifying addresses and implement new rules regarding payments to healthcare providers. These funding reductions and new regulations could pose challenges for hospitals, particularly those in rural or small-town settings. Many rural hospitals have depended heavily on Medicaid funding to remain operational. With diminished funds, some of these hospitals might have to curtail the medical services they provide, or even shut down entirely. This could restrict healthcare access for people living far from major urban centers. Beyond healthcare, the bill also modifies the program that assists families with food purchases, known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. This program provides monthly food funds to about 3.7 million people nationwide. The revisions to SNAP introduce new rules that mirror Medicaid's work requirements. Most able-bodied adults receiving SNAP benefits will be required to meet work or job training mandates. The bill also alters how a family's income is calculated for SNAP eligibility. Money spent on internet services will no longer be considered a deductible expense, which could result in reduced food assistance for some families. Another new regulation requires states to contribute their own money, it's called matching funds, to the SNAP program. This marks the first time states have been subjected to this requirement for food aid. These changes to the SNAP program are projected to save the government around $185 billion over the next 10 years. Nevertheless, many are concerned that these modifications, particularly the work requirements and benefit calculations, could make it harder for millions of low-income families to afford sufficient and healthy food. In summary, the bill enacts major reforms to how the government assists people with health care and food, reducing funding for these vital programs, and adding new rules that individuals must meet to receive aid. 6. New rules for the border and energy. This section examines the new regulations pertaining to the nation's border and its energy policy. The large bill allocates a significant sum of money for border security. It's providing nearly $170 billion for this purpose. This funding will support the construction of new sections of a wall at the border. With about $50 billion designated for the wall and associated structures, it also provides funds for detaining individuals who arrive at the border. Approximately $1.45 billion is earmarked for facilities to hold adults. The bill also funds the hiring of more personnel to work at the border as part of the government's Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE). Funding will be available for several thousand additional agents. The bill also establishes new facilities for holding families and children. This new funding and these policy changes are designed to facilitate the deportation of many individuals from the country. Furthermore, the bill imposes new costs on those coming to the United States or who are already legal residents. There will be new fees. For instance, a new visa fee is expected to generate about $29 billion over 10 years. Other fees will apply to items like work permits or visitor applications. Next, the bill introduces major shifts in energy policy. It eliminates government funding. For clean energy programs, over $500 billion is withdrawn from initiatives that supported clean energy, including subsidies for purchasing electric vehicles or for generating energy from solar or wind sources. In its place, The bill offers greater support to traditional energy industries. It provides backing for oil and gas companies and opens up new federal lands for drilling, both onshore and offshore. The bill also relaxes the regulations for oil and gas extraction. It rescinds rules that limit vehicle pollution. It also cuts funding for environmental cleanup efforts and clean water projects. The government will conduct fewer reviews of the potential environmental impact of large construction projects. Supporters of this approach claim it will enhance the country's energy independence and reduce energy prices. Opponents argue that it is detrimental to the environment and hinders the growth of new, clean energy technologies. 7. America and the world. This bill holds significant implications for America's engagement with the rest of the world. It addresses the nation's security and its strength in the years to come. A major element of the bill is a substantial increase in funding for the military. This funding is intended to bolster national security and defense. Military spending will rise by approximately $160 billion, a very significant sum. This additional funding will be allocated to a variety of areas. It will help procure new ships for the Navy to operate on the oceans and acquire more aircraft for the Air Force. To maintain air superiority, it will also finance a new system. It's designed to shield the country from long-range rockets or missiles. This defense system has been named the Golden Dome, and its objective is to create a robust shield against distant missile threats. The nation is increasing its defense expenditure to project strength globally and prepare for potential dangers, particularly in relation to other powerful nations like China and Russia. The bill is meant to ensure America remains prepared and strong in comparison to these countries, thereby deterring them from aggressive actions. Funds are also directed toward improving supply chains and accelerating weapons production. Money is allocated for new, lower-cost weaponry and for enhancing defense capabilities in the Pacific region, which is strategically important due to China's influence. However, some critics argue that this massive military expenditure is excessive. They maintain that America's current spending is already high, and this extra funding is unnecessary. The bill also alters America's interactions with other nations in various ways, potentially affecting international relationships. For example, the bill's termination of government funding for clean energy projects, such as support for electric cars and solar power, diverges from the efforts of many global allies who are pushing for greater use of clean energy to protect the planet. This decision could create friction or disagreements between America and its partners on this critical issue. Another significant change concerns immigration and border security. The bill directs far more resources toward controlling the country's border and implements new, more stringent rules for people entering America. These changes can impact relations with other countries, especially nearby nations like Mexico and those in Central America, from which many migrants originate. Therefore, this bill's impact extends beyond domestic matters like taxes and health care. It also enacts major changes to the nation's defense posture and influences how it behaves and is perceived by the global community. It alters key international dynamics and signals to the world what America currently prioritizes. What happens next? This new law represents a watershed moment for the nation, bringing about numerous changes. However, implementing the law will not be a simple process. It will be a lengthy endeavor fraught with many challenges. Various government agencies must now formulate new regulations. States will need to adjust how they administer certain programs. Businesses and citizens must come to understand the new tax codes and other mandates. This work is intricate and will demand considerable effort from many people. This bill is also set to become a central issue in future elections. It will be a subject of intense public debate, people arguing whether the bill was beneficial or detrimental to the country. The votes cast on this legislation will be remembered. As citizens choose their leaders in the coming years, two starkly different perspectives on this bill exist. One group believes it is positive, convinced it will foster economic growth and make the country stronger and more secure. They view it as a major accomplishment. Another group considers the bill harmful, believing it will negatively affect many people, especially those who rely on assistance for health care and food. They think it will cause the national debt to become unmanageable and see it as a perilous move. The future will reveal the ultimate consequences of this law, which is set to impact millions of lives. How do you believe this bill will alter things? For the people of this country, thank you for staying with us until the end of the story. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss our next story. Have a fantastic day, be well, and we'll see you next time.